Welcome back to another episode of With Sonar. I am Luke Velasca, and thank you again for tuning in. Also, don't forget, be sure we will take questions live during the show, so be sure to leave us a comment. We'll be monitoring Facebook as well as LinkedIn Live. And of course, as a special thank you, as always, to my co-host, Kyle Taylor. Kyle, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me again. It's always an honor to being brought back every week.
Every week, except for the 1 week you kicked me off. No, it's okay.
Sometimes you gotta prove your worth a little bit.
That's good. By the way, I like the FreightWaves shirt. Is this an American shipper combo?
This is an American shipper combo. This is not only freight all kinds. I think that was an old podcast that we had going on, and then American shipper, really just a part of our content crew. Talk to our boy Casey Larkin will hook you up with some American shipper.
That's right, Casey Larkin. He's our American shipper marketing guru.
Yep.
Knows all the ins and outs. Yeah. Glad that was a fun. They're a fun bunch over there. I remember when we acquired them, they all came to the office. We had some chance to hang around. Just good folks. They've been covering the industry for a while, know the ins and outs. They were a fun bunch to learn from.
It was a match made in heaven for sure, because when they came on board, they already had such a great voice. They really had a good way that they looked at the market, and it brought something that we didn't have, which was really coming into the ocean, the maritime, the air, the really global trade that American Shipper really brings to our content.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's the whole purpose of FreightWaves, right? To bring as much of, to be the one-stop shop for all things freight, right? Mm-hmm. And FreightWaves did a really good job of covering the trucking and logistics industry here in North America, but then adding that piece outside of trucking, right? The maritime, the air, to bring it about as full scope as you can. Well, I'm excited to talk today. We've got some really good stuff going on. We just had Memorial Day, a holiday. I know that kind of always throws a wrench into things.
Yep.
We're pretty much in the thick of it. I mean, we're going to run this whole month, and then we have 4th of July, and then July happens, and nothing's really going on for the rest of July or August, and then Labor Day comes, and then we kind of get into the last little bit of the year there with all the holidays and whatnot. But we're kind of in the thick of it, and I think a lot of folks are curious. How is the freight market going to react? Right now, it kind of looks very similar to 2018 volume levels, but that again, like it could flip at any time and look completely different. Beginning of the year, it didn't look like 2018. Now it does. Who knows what next week will be? But I'm excited. What have you been hearing? Anything? What were folks saying to the run up to Memorial Day?
It's a very interesting concept because, one, if you're looking at our charts and you're seeing what we're talking about this week, not only are we completely surpassing 2018, 2019 numbers, talking about volume coming out at the beginning of the week, but we are still consistently being higher than what those seasonality benchmarks were. And so from that perspective, there's a lot of, I would hate to say negativity, but like pessimism in the marketplace. We're still trying to get everything back on the line. A lot of states and districts are really only in phase 1 of opening back up. So there's still a lot of companies that aren't to their full potential, and whatever that potential might be. Retailers, are the malls going to be opening back up? Maybe not. E-commerce is really taking a strong stance right now, but the volumes, there's no comparison, there's no way to get around it. There is just a lot of van freight being moved in the market right now, and I mean, what a time we needed that.
Yeah, and it seems like everyone's trying to move it at the same time. It's not like, hey, all the volume is coming out of the southeast, or no, all the volume is coming from the ports in like LA, Long Beach, right? And it's coming from those retail goods, or no, the auto manufacturers. It really seems like it's almost everywhere. I mean, we were looking at the weekly charts, and almost every single market in the United States, volume levels were up. And it was like, what are you talking? And it wasn't like, oh, this market's up 2%, this one's up 3%. Atlanta was up almost 20%. Ontario, California up almost 20%. Dallas up almost over 20%. I mean, these are major markets that are having these massive moves and surges in volume. That's going to tighten up capacity.
Yeah, that's exactly, or just bring the capacity back online. So really the question to some of the smaller trucking companies, I mean, we read some of the articles about the trying to get visibility for brokerage margins and all these smaller carriers trying to go up to Capitol Hill and trying to, trying to bring regulation so that there's more awareness to what is that buy sell for brokerages, and then we get hit with these volumes, and now that's kind of pushed to the side a little bit. Now we're seeing rates increase, and now we're seeing a lot more opportunity. So that's going to bring a lot of people out that were maybe shutting down their trucks.
Yeah.
So, but we're live. So if you're out there and you've felt physically what's going on out in the market, shoot us a comment, and we'll definitely break it down and show some correlations within Sonar.
Yeah, absolutely. We will take requests, right? Something we've said before: no market is created equal. Just because something is happening in one area, right? What's going to happen in LA may not happen in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, right? Every situation is a little bit different, and we want to know, how are you experiencing things as a broker or as a carrier or as a shipper, right? Are you an owner op, a large fleet? Those are things we want to know. We want to know how you're experiencing things. So please leave us some comments. We'll definitely take those. You mentioned something like capacity coming back online. I think more trucks coming back into the market. I remember talking with folks when COVID was really, hitting hard in the United States, and it's still obviously here. But I think when it was first coming, there were folks that were taking capacity out of the market. Carriers were shutting down. Our owner ops were hey, I don't want to be out right now. I don't want to take the risk. And now that volume levels are coming back in, it's like you said. Do they have the luxury? Are they still able to sit on the sidelines? Can they really sit by while there's, a truck, for lack of a better word, is a very expensive paperweight. You have to keep it moving.
Yeah. Well, I think there was some interesting aspects even from the insurance perspective, that even during this time that you can kind of shut down your insurance policy for a short-term period, so that, hey, I'm shutting down my truck. I'm not going to be putting the risk, so I'm not going to be putting the liability on the provider that I'm getting my insurance from, and so getting that back on the line. From what I'm reading online and some of the forums, is actually a pretty seamless process. So it's really just monitoring those costs. What is the cost for me to finally get back? Is it $1.75 a mile? Is it $2 a mile? Whatever it is, I think carriers are really out there looking, especially if they're sitting on the sideline. When is that opportunity to get back into it? And so they've really been monitoring probably the spot market, the load board, seeing what the prices are going for that are posted there to really get that asset back on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really, really good point. And it's good to hear that the insurance companies are helping to make that process, I guess, as seamless as possible. You do like to hear that. Definitely good to have the cost savings. What's the what do you think from now that volume levels are back up? Obviously, it's hard to say what's going to happen in the future. Generally, after Memorial Day, a few days after Memorial Day, we do see volume levels jump again. We saw that this time. We saw that in years past. Obviously, this year, and we'll show that volume levels jumped much higher than they typically do.
Right.
But usually, you'll see volume levels kind of hang out around these levels until the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Right? Is that going to happen again?
The only thing we could go on is some historical data to really show you a little bit of the correlations here. But there's always a deep valley going into Memorial Day, given the long 3-day weekend of really the pull forward, and then really if you weren't able to or weren't wanting to as a shipper pay top dollar because capacity gets so tight just before Memorial Day, you have a massive amount of tenders that are going to be going out on that Monday. And so that's exactly what we saw. And one thing, you talk about last year, it was a little bit larger of an increase. I think last year from pre-Memorial Day to the day after Memorial Day, or that Monday, we saw a 4% gain. That was an increase in the amount of tenders from that Thursday to that Monday. And so we saw a doubling of that. So 8% gain from that Thursday to Monday this year, and that actually matched what we saw in 2018.
Yeah.
And so if you're a betting man, I would have been betting somewhere along those lines. If I saw 8% and 4% increases, I would have been knowing that there's going to be some increases, and try to see how this starts to continue on, like you say. Usually we go till the July 4th.
Absolutely. Let's give the folks at home a visual here. So
give them what they want.
And that's right, man. Give them what they want. Let's throw this up on the screen for the viewers as soon as we can. So what Kyle here is talking about is comparing the seasonality volume trend. So this looks a lot at first, but here, let me break it down for you. In blue, you've got truckload volume levels year to date. That is 2020 volume levels, right? So you can see here, right, there was that coronavirus panic buying surge, that mountain, then we dipped below that when the panic buying was done. Everybody decided, I have enough toilet paper to last, I don't need to go to the store anymore, right? And then we started to climb back up a little bit. Slowly, we came back up, and it seems like we recovered. And we actually hit 2018 levels.
Yeah.
The other colors on this chart, in orange, you have 2018 volume levels. In green, you have 2019 volume levels. So you have a very good comparison of where we are. Obviously, you had the Memorial Day dip. That's what Kyle was talking about here, where you have this drop off.
Yeah,
That's
zoom in on
Memorial
that.
Day. Absolutely, we can. Good call here. Let me see if my fat thumbs can make it work. Okay, there we go. That should be good, right?
There we go, yeah.
Right here. This is what we're looking at, right here.
Perfect.
Okay. So, yeah, right at the very end of May. This drop right here, that's Memorial Day. Obviously, Memorial Day happens at a different day, different date each year. It's always that Monday, but a different date. So that's why the lines don't match up perfectly. But then, look, we rose up and then we shot up again. And that's exactly what happened. Again, we kind of rose up a little bit, then we shot up that orange line 2018, green line 2019.
I mean, just like over the weekend, SpaceX really, they got out into...
That's right.
Yeah, they shot up like a rocket, per se, pun fully intended. George would love that one.
SpaceX is bringing us all up to the moon with them.
Not only was SpaceX going to the moon shots, so were tender volumes. And so seeing that sharp increase was definitely something that I wasn't really expecting that much. I wasn't going to think that we were going to be this much higher than we were last year or the year previously.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, volume levels right before Memorial Day, again, look at the blue and orange line. They were about even. That's this year and 2018. And they dropped to almost the same level, right? I would have expected, if we're going off seasonality, to kind of sit around the same level, but you actually had volume levels go about an extra 2% higher than 2018.
Right.
That's surprising.
And to really point out, the tender rejection rates are starting to slowly climb back into it, which
that's right.
You know, the best proxy for spot market pricing, because we really follow those waterfall tenders or those route guides. So when you see tender rejection rates start to increase with volume starting to increase, it's really good for the freight economy, honestly. When you see those two things coming, I mean, you have oil that is a really good proxy for how the global economy for the United States is really starting to trend up. So not only are we seeing fuel prices go up and the stock market's green today, and really surprisingly green, especially coming out of this weekend. But we're also seeing that tender rejections are coming back up. We're seeing that volumes are back up. So very optimistic for coming into the summertime.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think too, it'll be interesting to see kind of where this volume sits. Generally speaking, after this holiday, volume levels remain fairly stable. The remainder, until the 4th of July, and then you kind of see a slight downtick, but time will obviously tell. So I think, if we kind of balance out here, I think the real test will be to see what happens from now until July. If we remain stable, that could be a really good indication for the rest of the year. If we don't, if we get more volatile, at that point, it's really anybody's guess.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Vincent talks about the big V shape. So is this going to be a V shape, or are we going to talk about more of like a W, or are we going to see, really a shot back down once everyone starts to get online? But something that is pretty positive, Florida, I believe, is starting phase 2 this week. So
you're a Florida man. Tell us about that.
Florida guy, and
you're from Tampa, right?
From Tampa, so I love me some Florida weather. I think it was in the 70s there this morning. So talked to a company from Jacksonville today.
It's about that here. It's like 80 here.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. So I talked to my family back in Florida, and I'm like, I don't miss the humidity and heat around this time. It should be in the 95s. I'll take the mountains. And
how much more humid is it in Tampa, Florida, than here in Chattanooga? Because you hear people in Chattanooga, Tennessee, talk about the humidity is the worst, but I've heard it's actually a lot worse in Tampa.
I would say it's about the same.
About the same? Okay.
I think it's about the same, but it's 8 months out of the year.
And I guess you have a beach. There's that. Unless you don't like the beach, then of course it's not good. But
yeah.
Most people like the beach.
Yeah, I'm a big golf guy, so I like golf being the Gulf of Mexico. So I like the West Coast waters more than the East Coast waters. My wife's from the East Coast, so we always have this debate: which beach is better, the East Coast or the West Coast?
I'm from the East Coast, and the Gulf is way better.
Yeah. I like the beautiful sand. Not really a lot of tide coming in, so
water's very clear. You can swim in it. I've done my fair share of swimming in it. It's great, awesome. So they're doing phase 2, and is that what kind of? How does that differ from phase 1? What changes?
Great. I guess I set myself up for success on that one.
You don't have to give us the in-depth version. Give us the
so really they're gonna be opening up so that you had the requirements of like 6 or less people like for the gyms. So more people are gonna be opening for the gyms.
Okay.
You had to work at half capacity, so I think they're opening more capacity at the companies that are, or the styles of businesses that were open, and then. Really, I can't wait for phase 3. Those bars open. Phase 3 is that ultimate test. We need to get to sit at a bar. I miss the wood or the smell of stained beer wood at some of these bars, but soon enough.
I think just that there's the social setting of a bar that folks miss, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we know people aren't missing their beer. Alcohol sales are up. So, but it's that social setting, it's that social gathering.
Real test of alcoholism is what the COVID-19 has done for everyone. You're seeing to-go drinks left and right. You can just order, it doesn't seem like open container is really being enforced or lack of being enforced. And at least from here in Chattanooga, we could definitely, every time you go order a to-go meal, you can buy a drink with it.
That's right. Yeah, different times for sure. It's amazing how quickly everything has pivoted. Speaking about quickly things have pivoted, back to the freight market here.
Whoa!
Sorry, that was I've been sitting on that one all day, folks. took me a long time to plan that one. But no. I mean it's all a sign, right? Consumers ultimately drive the economy, right? If as things continue to open up, if these phases continue to evolve successfully, that's a good sign for the trucking market, right? You want consumers to continue to spend goods. So your manufacturers continue to order so that they continue to need your trucks to run their goods. That's a good thing. We want this volume level to continue.
Our economist, Anthony, he doesn't like to call himself the chief economist, but I'll call him the chief economist.
Call him the king economist.
A king economist here at FreightWaves, Anthony. He always talks about really the orders coming back up is really that true tell, and then also the being able to identify that us as Americans have very short-term memories.
Yes.
So as soon as we see a little bit of optimism, we're back to spending it again. We're looking
about,
right? What? and then so that's I think what we're kind of seeing as well is little slight bits of rays of sunshine that come back into the marketplace that you start to see a little bit of optimism.
Yeah, so. And speaking of rays of sunshine, I mean Disney World is opening, so it's happiest place on earth.
Yeah, and then Hamilton is coming back.
That's right.
Is coming out, so I never got a chance to see that when it was going through all the theaters throughout the United States. So I'm glad that Disney Plus is going to be showing that.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see how they got a lot of things coming their way.
No, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and I'm also excited to see what happens with movie theaters. We haven't new movies aren't really coming out much. Yeah. And I'm just curious to see how that evolves.
Yeah.
But time will tell. But let's go back here. So, by the way, any questions in the chat?
Facebook, not yet.
Okay. No worries. I got some good things I'm ready to blow people's minds with.
There you go.
Okay, so we were talking, you mentioned earlier that tender rejections are up, and remember, tender rejections lead spot market pricing, right? That's the rate carriers reject their contracted tenders, so as that continues to go up, shippers are forced to put more freight on the spot market, which ultimately increases those rates, right? We've climbed substantially. We were sitting in like the very end of April. I think it was the end of April. We were sitting right around 2%, give or take.
What are we at, like 5%
And
now?
we're over 5% right now and still climbing. That's healthy, right? Obviously, sure, you want rates to go high, you want tender rejections to go as high as possible, but there is sort of a middle ground with this, right?
Right.
And you have to be mindful of that. Tender rejections they just recently crossed. They just crossed as of 3 days ago. where tender rejections were in 2018, or excuse me, in 2019. So that's a really good sign. If you can see here, oh, we got it on the screen. So if you see right here, this blue line is 2020 tender rejections. That goes up. You'll start to see rates go up along with that. This green line is going to be your 2019 tender rejections. So that volume deficit is what drove the blue line down here. That's just what took us a while to catch back up, but we're moving again. Now, remember, volume levels are up. Do you want to know which markets they're up in the most?
Let's see it.
I'll just kind of hit that and just...
Quick segue.
Let me give you a hint. The green markets are where volume levels are increasing. By the way, this is all 135 major markets in the United States.
Jeez Louise,
So,
look at that.
Literally every single one, and there's really, the markets all the way in the bottom right are the smallest markets, right? That's like your Bismarck, North Dakota, Billings, Montana. Those tiny markets, obviously the ones in the top left are the big markets like Atlanta, Ontario, Houston, Elizabeth, New Jersey, Dallas, so on and so forth. So just to kind of understand what you can't see in the bottom right, it's those tiny markets that you don't, that
you
you
always
never
pick
go
on
to.
Bismarck. Bismarck's always the one that gets picked on the most, you know?
I pick on Bismarck a lot just because, well, it's usually one of the smallest markets, usually in the top 3 or bottom 3, however you want to say it for smallest markets.
Yeah.
But its tender rejections are usually very high, and I always make the joke that, like, okay, if you happen to have a truck in Bismarck, North Dakota, congratulations, you got a good rate of the one of 4 loads that are going out this week. Like,
right.
But no, I mean, there's obviously more than that. But yeah, I mean, look at this. I mean, this is just over the past 7 days. Atlanta's up 18.5%. Ontario's up 18.3%. Harrisburg, PA's up almost 20. Dallas is up 18%. Houston's up 20%. Where do you want to send your truck today? You can pick just about anywhere.
Yeah, you know, just start going through that wallet of yours, and I see a lot of money on that screen.
Hey, Houston, you get a truck. Ontario, you get a truck. Atlanta, here's a few trucks. Come on. Everybody gets a truck.
Yeah. You got
There's
a pallet.
everywhere.
I got a pallet. No, that's actually spot on. I mean, the numbers don't lie, and so this is exactly what we really wanted in the freight economy right now. This is our little ray of sunshine, and we'll see how this continues to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've got 5 out of the 135 markets showed a decline. I mean, I don't remember the last time that happened. And this is an increase when volume levels aren't low. Remember, folks, they are higher than where they were in 2018. So, like, this is substantial. Capacity will continue to tighten. Now, of course, with anything, outbound volumes are only one piece of the picture, right? You know, of course, we can break it down, look at reefer versus driving. I know driving is driving a lot of this volume increase, but we can do that. You also need to look at the inbound volume into markets, right? So, you know, that will determine how tight the capacity is. For example, you know, tender rejections are a little over 5% right now, but out of Ontario, California, they're actually almost 8% right now. So it's much higher. Capacity is tighter in that market than it is in Atlanta, even though Atlanta saw a bigger increase.
No, and this is huge for, you start talking about load postings, and load postings are great, and you probably saw a massive increase in load postings, but to validate on a, you know, $200 billion worth of freight that's moving. You know, these big shippers that have these contracted route guides in place, this is what we're monitoring. So, you know, we're going to see in a couple weeks some other companies that are just going to say, hey, Memorial Day was great this year, and it's like, we told you that 2 weeks ago. So, you know, this is why more up-to-date information is more valuable, being able to validate. If you're talking about this from a shipper's point of view, you know, this is capacity that's getting taken away from your route guide. This is, you know, as that tender rejection rate starts to increase, this is, you know, everyone's shipping at one time. I need to make sure my route guide's in order. From a broker, this is a, you know, should be a field day, calling around, seeing. I mean, I used to say, go and pick the green tiles. Those are the places you want to call because they have the most amount of freight. Well, you could probably throw a dart at that.
You got 130 to pick from.
And then from a carrier point of view as well, I mean, rates have been in the dirt, so this is really what we've been looking for. This is we're seeing rates start to increase, and so this is some positivity that I'm seeing as well. And I think from the rail and import side, we're seeing the same thing as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we absolutely are. I mean, You know, and as this continues to increase, you'll only start to see that reflective in more areas of the economy, right? And something that you mentioned too, I want to make a point on is, right, this is going to tell the story as to what's happening. So we know that when tender projections go up, rates go up. Most rate assessment tools are usually on a week to 2 week lag on average, 1 to 2 week behind.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's how they operate. That's fine. That's good information.
Golden standard is what you might want to call that.
Right.
I mean, that's what's been around in the market for longer than I've been alive.
Exactly.
So.
But when things change this rapidly, you need something a little bit faster. It doesn't mean that that stuff isn't relevant. What it means is you need another tool that's more up to date to tell you how things have changed, and that's what this does. Also, what it tells you why. If you're like, let's say, like I used to be a heavy DAT user, right? When I was in brokerage, and you would see a rate. Like, let's say, like pick a market, right? Let's say you're going from, I don't know, Seattle to LA, right? And let's just say the rate was $1.75 a mile for a load, right? And then the next week, it's $1.95 a mile, right? Regardless of whether that's up to date or not, sometimes there's a lag with that stuff. You have no way. I used to move a lot of spot freight out of Seattle, and I really had no real way to validate to my shipper why I'm charging them more this week from last week. I'm like, the rates are up. Why are they up? Say, I think there's more loads. I'm seeing more loads on the
capacity
board,
is getting tight.
I mean, I guess. I have a way to validate that. This way I do it. I'm like, oh, why are rates up? Well, guess what? Volumes are up 20%. Carriers have their pick of choice of freight today, so therefore, they're just bidding freight up. That's what's happening right now. They got more options to choose from. Oh, great. Thank you, Luke. Here's more freight for you now that I know that you're taking care of me. Don't believe me?
You
Here's a chart.
You said there's a couple of trucks that say that they're not going to take that rate. You know what, Luke? Take my money.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that's what it's about. Let me go validate with some I see what it's posted for, and I call some carriers, and of course I try to throw like $50 less, $100 less. Hey, will you take it from this? Nope, I won't. Okay, great. But how do I validate that with my customers?
Absolutely. But guess what? Here's where the real value is, right? We know volumes are up across the board, except in a few markets, right? Like for example, Charleston, West Virginia, it's a tiny market, but guess what? Volume levels actually decreased last week, one of the 5 markets. If you're moving freight out of there just because volume levels are up everywhere, you don't need, volume levels are up everywhere. Everybody's asking for a higher premium for rates, but that could just be carriers playing, well, everybody else is asking for more, so I'm going to ask for more. But in this market, you don't get to ask for more.
Right.
The volume levels aren't up. Capacity's down. So anyway.
We saw that at the beginning of COVID as well. Is that you start to hear people talk to each other. So you hear carriers say, oh, you got a load for $4 a mile. You get to the truck stop. Oh, you're hauling this for how much? Oh, okay. And so you start hearing that, and you put yourself in markets. And you're like, well, I'm not accepting anything for $2, my normal freight that I get.
Yeah.
I'm going to be pushing that. I'm going to be driving that rate up.
Show me the money.
And so, that's what we're seeing here as well. And so, I mean, we start thinking about it. I think average length of haul is right at about 600 right now.
Yep.
So, that was falling down, but I can imagine that in the next couple of weeks that's going to be increasing.
That's pretty high, isn't it? Over 600 miles right now? Comparatively to where we've sat in the past?
Yeah, actually. So if we're comparing this to really peak COVID, we're up from like 500. So.
Yeah, right on. Well, good stuff. I know we're getting here close to the end of time. This has been really good. We're going to start wrapping up. Folks, if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll get to them after the show, of course, now that we're wrapping up. Also, if you want to see sonar in action, this is the surface level view, right? This is the 20,000-foot view of sonar. There's a million solutions you can actually build with this data, and we'd love to show them to you. If you're on your phone, take your phone, open up the camera, and scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner. It'll pop up. It'll schedule a demo for you automatically. You can sit with myself. You can sit with Kyle or one of the other folks here at FreightWaves that's a sonar specialist, and we can get you set up. Love to talk to you. Let us know if you have any questions. Thank you again for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday at 4 p.m. for With Sonar Live. Have a fantastic day.